Welcome to People Don't Think. Let's Start Today, a podcast hosted by Norb Svanascini, founder of AmericanEagle.com, and Al Edwards. Norb, we're at it again. Here we are.
At it again. It's a wonderful day, and you have to thank God for this gift, this present it gives you every day.
Exactly.
It's really a nice day today, sunny, nice temperature. The trees are blooming, and they look beautiful.
Nice springtime day.
You got to look at those things, because if you just look at the news, you're going to be very depressed. So
exactly. That's
just
very
look at
true.
the trees and look at the birds and be happy spring is here.
Exactly. Well, friends, this is a special episode. Not only is it number 16, Norb, if you can believe that, sweet 16, but we have a very special episode because Norb just got back from Japan. He just flew back in, and boy, friends, are his arms tired from that long flight, right, Norb?
Oh, my God, yeah.
So I had to use that old joke, right? I just flew in from Cincinnati. Boy, are my arms tired. But Norb just got back from Japan. This was his 6th trip. And I have to say, in talking to you about it, it really was a very moving experience for you. And there was a lot of insights you had about life and people and positivity and everything that we really want to share with our listeners today. So tell us about your trip, Norb.
Well, Japan is a very interesting country because obviously they were in a very, very big war, which they really suffered a lot of losses. And the ability to recover from that is just probably as fascinating as anything because
Sure.
It proves that, with a positive mental attitude, which obviously they have had, they have built a phenomenal country, and it's a country that the people are really positive about being in that state of wonderment because, first of all, it's a very clean country. They're very careful about, when you enter the country, it's a kind of an interesting experience because I went with my daughter, and one of the things she observed is that, there's no homeless in Japan, and there's nobody on benches. And there's benches all over, and people are there sitting and enjoying, the trees. And we actually went on cherry blossom time, so it was really uniquely beautiful. But, you land at the airport, and on the baggage retrieval area, they have dogs sniffing for drugs. So the punishment for drugs in Japan is very severe. They watch that very, very careful. And obviously, the country doesn't seem to need drugs because it's extremely clean. People are incredibly polite. And they just practice this kind of doing the right thing. Whatever you do, you go to lunch in just a regular restaurant, and they put the plate in front of you, and they give you a napkin, which is usually one of these wet napkins that clean your hands. The food is very well prepared, and it's kind of interesting because the Japanese prepare the food to show you what the choices are in this plastic dish. And I even mentioned to my daughter, this must be one heck of a business in Japan because you got all these plastic
plastic injection food
all over
makers.
the place. And basically, it looks just like that, too. It's not, they make sure that when you get the plate, it looks exactly like that plastic thing. And, you take the subway, and the subway is clean, and it's just the Tokyo station is something that you should experience in your life because it's between Tokyo and Yokohama, and there is no dividing line. It's all one complex. It's the largest population in the world. It's 35 million people.
Wow.
And somehow, it works, and everybody's polite. It's just really, it shows you what humanity can be if people apply themselves and are proud about what they do. And we've talked about Japan before, and there's really it's a contrast right now with what's happening, in other parts of the world, including the United States, where there's this tremendous, defeatist attitude about what's happening. They have a very, very nice way of looking at life.
What struck me from listening to your trip as you and I were chatting, it seems like the golden rule is the cultural norm there. Treat people nicely, treat people like you'd like to be treated. Everyone seems to be thinking about each other, at least socially, versus it's all about me kind of a thing.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a perfect country. They have a lot of problems that are really very interesting. For example, they have a tremendous amount of people that are older. And last year, I believe, the births were only half of the deaths.
Wow.
So they feel that demographics are going to change drastically in the next 20, 30 years because the population will decrease.
That's interesting.
That is a problem. And maybe it's just part of, because they're so successful, they live so well, that they don't want to be burdened. I don't know. I'm just saying that, which is a shame because it's a phenomenal country to grow up in,
Absolutely. You mentioned in another podcast that and we're going to talk about some of the Japanese philosophy, the names of them and what they mean and everything. But one of the things you mentioned in the past was that taking pride in anything you do. The janitor is proud of what he does, and the cardiac surgeon and everyone in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, one of the most incredible things that really is, when you see it, you just can't believe it. But, when you board the plane to come back to the U.S., the whole crew goes outside and bows to the plane.
To the plane?
To the plane.
Not to the people.
Well, I imagine to the people in the plane.
Oh, I thought you meant the plane itself they bow to.
Well, obviously, they're hoping that somebody watches them.
Right.
On one side. The other side doesn't know what's going on. But what's interesting is that, there's just this respect. And like you say, it's the golden rule, I think that's what they would like to see. And you take these incredible train rides, and they go about 220 miles an hour, and they're just phenomenal. I mean, they're luxurious. But when the ticket agent goes through, after he leaves the car, he bows to the people in that car, and then he goes to the next car and he bows to those people, and it's really, really nice, because there's this respect. And it's so clean that it's really hard to believe. My daughter and I were walking, and there's a lot of tourists in Japan, especially this time of the year because of the cherry blossom, which are incredibly beautiful. And we saw a little piece of paper, and we both reached for it on the street because it wasn't supposed to be there.
It was out of place.
And it's like that. It's just that kind of, it breeds that kind of contagious being nice.
Positivity.
Yeah.
And
positive
optimism.
in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. That's the only way you can describe it, really.
I was in the insurance business for many years, and I happened to work at one time for a Japanese insurance agency, and I got to know a few of the guys who had come over here, for 5-year stints, how they like to do it, and hung around with a lot of these guys. And I learned some Japanese expressions that are very, that demonstrate very well this philosophy, this positive philosophy you were talking about. One of them basically is translated to, when you leave for the day, thank you for your efforts, you must be tired. And if you leave before someone else, you excuse yourself for leaving before them. And another thing I noticed when they would answer the phone, if somebody called them, the first thing they'd say to the person was, "Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry." Because somehow them calling the person saying that was an imposition on the caller, which I never quite understood because you're calling that guy.
Right.
But it's like, "Oh, pardon me," kind of thing. It's just so the mindset is so different.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. We went to a store. They have stores that are incredible, and we're from Chicago. Most people don't realize, but Chicago really was an incredible city as far as retailing is concerned. Marshall Field was the first huge retail store in the world, and Marshall Field brought concepts to retailing that up to today are used. And I think that in Japan they've gotten to the most incredible spot because they do everything that Marshall Field said. And one of the most interesting things about Japan, and they had in the 1850s, they had an emperor by the name of Meiji. And in Tokyo, there's a huge park which Meiji lived in, and it's a temple and a home. Beautiful place, just absolutely beautiful, in a real beautiful area of Tokyo. And, he actually, there's an inscription there that says, Japan must learn how to allow other countries' influences to come in, but we should keep the good things about Japanese society, but we must also adapt to the new ones.
Wow.
And one of the things that Japan has, which is interesting, because if you go to Europe, the Europeans stick to, it was a long, long time before you could get decent air conditioning, generally all over Europe, and I'm including, modern societies like Germany, Sweden, and in the summertime, there were a lot of luxurious places that did not have air conditioning.
Oh my gosh.
And then if you want to get ice in Europe, they give you 2 little cubes of ice. And now it's changing because, but it's very, very hard. And they serve wine, room temperature. And I had a friend of mine that said, the reason is because they don't have refrigeration, because wine is better cold. Now, I'm not saying wine is better cold. It's a preference. But obviously, why did they say it has to be served at room temperature? Because
they had no other choice.
They didn't have a refrigeration. So, the Europeans were very, very hard at adopting newer things because they're very, very jealous of their standards.
Right.
The Japanese, no, they don't care. If it's better, when you order a glass of water in Japan, it's full of ice, just like in this country. You don't have to even ask for it. It's there.
Right.
There's hamburger places, and a lot of people are worried about the food in Japan. You don't have to worry about the cleanliness. It's just it's so clean that it's just incredible.
Yeah.
The public bathrooms, it's a crazy thing to talk about, but my daughter says, I can't wait to go to the bathroom here because they're so beautiful. And and they all have the bidet, and they have little sinks in the bathroom for women. They don't have that for guys. She told me that. So, it's just, an incredible country. It's, and it is positive. It is positive because, when you think what happened to them after the war, that they were decimated, they basically, took that attitude that, we're going to build this thing again, and they've built a phenomenal society.
And everything we're talking about, whether it be a bathroom or a napkin to wash your hands with before you eat, it really is all about positivity and progress and advancing and evolving. It really is. When you boil it down,
you actually feel very good because, who doesn't feel good when there's cleanliness?
Right. Orderliness.
Order and it's clean and there's nothing no papers on the floor and everybody's polite and you go to these retail stores. I was talking and every department has usually a young lady with a uniform. And, they seem to be as interested as you are in getting the right thing. And they're polite. And today, by the way, with Google Translate, which I used a lot, by the way, because the Japanese speak very little English, really. But they're very happy when you see Google Translate, and they use it too, so you can communicate very, very well.
That's funny.
But
that's what I really do see all this effort towards courtesy and cleanliness and respect as a huge form of positivity and looking to be the best people you can be. That's really what it boils down to.
And the one thing, when you thank you in Japanese is arigato, and every place you go at the end, it's always arigato, and after a while you say it to them, and they actually enjoy seeing you that you do it too. And you even, not that you bow like they do, because they actually take it to a really high degree. But you also, have that respect.
Sure.
And it's kind of nice. It really is. And, they do stuff that is really common sense too, which is, it doesn't cost any money or anything. Like, for example, they have incredible amount of shopping centers with restaurants. And when I say restaurants, they might have 20 of them in the same shopping center. And people go there, on weekends and even during the day, and they eat there. And they have a list outside, a written piece of paper where you put your name, and you know exactly how many people are before you. And, you go here and you stand around and you wonder when they're going to call you. And here everybody can see, and it's just another form of courtesy which costs nothing.
Right.
And it's common sense, and so.
And you feel good when you're a part of that. Like you feel respected.
Yeah, because you feel that, well, this is my turn, and they're not going to break on that. That's their order,
Right.
And there is none of this. This guy comes in, and because he's a big shot, he gets the table. No. I mean, there's an order there, and I'm sure that happens too, obviously. But there's just a niceness about the whole operation.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. I've thought a lot about this. When it comes to cars, the Japanese, and I think Americans have now caught up, but there was a period in the 70s and 80s when the Japanese cars were so far superior to ours. And ironically, Henry Ford was not Japanese, but what the Japanese do is they take something and they work on perfecting it, which is positivity all right there when you think about it.
Yeah, and they're very open. One of the things about the Japanese culture is whatever bodily thing you have, they just tell you. There's no shame in expressing, what's wrong with them. It's just nature. They take it as a fact thing, and they're very open. They say, and I've done business in Japan, and I've had the good fortune of meeting, some really nice people, and they're very open. They say, you guys in America are really the inventors, but we can perfect whatever you think of. And they're very proud of that, and it's not offensive because they're basically praising the Americans for our quality of being inventive and bringing new things to the marketplace. But they're also very proud that they can, make it better,
I have often said that we are innovators and they are perfecters.
Yeah, exactly.
Where we will send a product to market at level 5 quality, they decide that no, level 9 is better.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And the cabs are incredible. The drivers wear white gloves, and there's doilies on the seats, and there's a little tray for the money, and it's just a phenomenal experience.
If that's not positivity and optimism, I don't know what is. Right?
No, I mean you can't. I went with my daughter, which was her first trip, and the only thing she can say is, "Gee, I can't wait to go back."
Right.
Because it's just that experience is phenomenal.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some specific Japanese philosophies that all of us, no matter where we live or who we are, can apply to our lives. The first one is used in business a lot. It's called, and by the way, my Japanese friend said I was pretty good at pronouncing Japanese words, so I hope I do pretty good here. So don't kill me if I don't. But The first one is called Kaizen, and it's the Japanese word for continuous improvement, a philosophy that focuses on ways to make things better without ever stopping. It's an idea that small but continuous and positive changes can make a big difference. It's basically a way of doing things when you're looking for ways to improve, even if it's something that seems meaningless. And getting better and improving at things is, again, the epitome of being a better person, positivity, optimism, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they practice that with themselves. You know, one of the interesting things about Japan is that, you know, the men and women are really very different in the way they dress. The men actually dress pretty much the same. They wear a business suit, which is either navy or black or dark gray, and they carry a suitcase. The women, on the other hand, each one of them is individually well dressed and different. A lot of really kind of a unique thing, you know.
Yeah.
Where the men feel that they've reached a point where this is the way to dress, and they all they look the same. Very formal, by the way, in a suit and tie. And the women some of them wear shorter skirts, some of them longer, some of them wear gray, some of them white. There's just a tremendous amount of variety. And in the retail stores, the big stores, the women's clothing is just incredible. And I tell you, the French and Italian people that, like Gucci and Yves Saint Laurent, they must make more money in Japan than just about any place.
They just love that stuff.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. The other interesting thing about Japan, which harkens back to our great country, is that the Japanese, all at the same time with their culture, ancient culture and philosophies, they are absolutely obsessed with the United States when it comes to pop culture, like Elvis and Mickey Mouse and, poodle skirts and all that old time stuff that we're so well known for. They just seem to eat that stuff up.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously they have Tokyo Disneyland, which I've been in, and I think it's probably my favorite Disneyland. I haven't been to the Chinese one, but it's really phenomenal. And the girls all dressed in Minnie Mouse costumes, and
right?
They really make an experience, and Disney is all over. Disney is all over, and American things are, accepted immediately. It's just what we were talking about, from that Emperor Meiji, that they're programmed to accept nice things,
right,
and they don't have to be Japanese, and they still have respect for the Japanese,
right,
history, and it's just a very, very interesting. There's no rejection that you can see when something is good from another country. It's just they have incredibly beautiful clothing, but they like their Gucci's and Yves Saint Laurent and Ralph Lauren. There's a street in Tokyo, which they call it the Champs-Élysées of basically Japan. Automendi is called, and it has the most incredible stores that you've ever seen of luxury goods. I mean, it's just incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking about with regard to Japan is how you mentioned 35 million people, and it's such a small island. You have to have that kind of order in order for society to evolve.
Absolutely. That's the interesting thing. When you go to the Tokyo train stations, you just cannot describe it because it's so big, and it's underground, most of it, the subway and the trains, and then it's so complex. Not only is it for trains and buses and everything, but it's also full of stores. And when I say full of stores, I'm talking about hundreds of stores. And Starbucks is all over, and they love Starbucks. And they have pastry shops that are beyond belief, like in France. And and they make soufflés like in France better than the French, and it's just incredibly well managed, and like you say, 35 million people
Yeah.
just going like crazy. They all go and they don't hit each other, and they're courteous.
Very
and,
little violence in Japan.
well, obviously, they have problems like every big city,
Yeah.
but the women and the kids, 10 o'clock at night, you see them walking. I mean, they're not afraid.
Yeah. That's
And
amazing.
it's just a different. And we went to a couple of temples in Kyoto, and there were schools, and all the schools, the kids have uniforms, and they're really nice, like blue blazers, and the girls with a white skirt, and the guys, with white shirts and blue pants, and you don't see any rowdiness, or they're like kids, they're not quiet,
Yeah.
but you're not fearful of them like you might be here,
Yeah. Everything you're describing to me basically just says that they are trying to live their life to the fullest and be the best they can be, the most civilized, the most cultured, the most polite, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Well, did you want to mention about anything else?
yeah, there's a couple of
yeah.
philosophies here we can go through.
Yeah.
The second one is called Ikigai. I hope I didn't murder that one. Talk about the murder rate in Japan. I think I may have just gotten life for that one. But Ikigai is your reason for being, the reason why you wake up in the morning, something you're good at that brings you joy and the world needs. And we've talked about that before. Having the happiest people on earth are the ones that have a purpose, that have a reason to get up and have something they believe in that they try and go do every day.
Yeah. And we talked about this before. Just think of 3 things every day that you're happy about. I mean, just to be alive, that you wake up and you're alive, and you have food in the refrigerator, and you can go out, and usually you have an automobile and it has gasoline, and
Right.
and be happy. And then when you go to work, be happy, say hi to people, and what a beautiful day, it's one of the most incredible things for me, because I've been a businessman all my life, so I always look at costs, just part of my makeup. The stuff we talk about doesn't cost anything.
Not a dime.
Not a dime. And it makes you happy. I read something very interesting. Nietzsche, which I hope you people have heard about.
The great philosopher.
Yeah, and he made a statement that is really, really interesting. And this is for people that feel anxious or depressed, and which in this country, unluckily, we seem to have a lot of that. And I was reading Japanese papers, actually in English. They have a Japan Times, and there isn't any article in the Japan Times that talks about anxiety or depression like they do in this country. It's all, there are a lot of political things, and some of them that I'm unaware of because I don't know the Japanese politics, but also international stuff and stuff like that. But nothing on depression, or everything is on the either factual or positive. But Nietzsche said something. What if someday or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, this life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and many other times. Would you throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon? Or have you experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, you are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine?
Wow.
Which means that you have to live your life like if somebody does give you that chance to live it again,
right,
you say, man, I want to do that again.
Exactly. Or would you say, oh my God, I can't do that again. I can't go through this again.
Right. And basically, I think that's what defines your life is are you happy with your life? And if you're positive, I think you'll be happy with your life. you know?
Well, I want to repeat this at every show now because it's so important. And you just kind of said it 2 or 3 shows ago, maybe just off the top of your head, but you said, be positive. What is the alternative?
Oh, yeah.
What's the alternative? Being miserable, being depressed, being negative all the time, having a black cloud over you at all the time. I think we should make bumper stickers that say, what is the alternative to being positive?
Yeah, I think, it's just, again, the Japanese people are not really that complicated because they're very basic. And that is a basic thought. What's the alternative? I mean, what's the alternative?
Right. What's it going to cost you? What have you got to lose?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
It's a guaranteed win.
Yeah, yeah. I have an old book that my father used to have, actually, and the title is Why Some Positive Thinkers Get Powerful Results by Norman Vincent Peale.
Whom we've talked about in the past.
There's a little paragraph here that I really like. Norman Vincent Peale was a very, very popular gentleman who was a minister, and he also had a lot of TV shows and radio shows about being positive. He tells a story about this gentleman that he knew that he encounters on Fifth Avenue in New York, and he said that he had so many problems that he just couldn't cope anymore with it. So Norman Vincent Peale says, I know a place where there are no problems, and I can take you there. And he says he saw the first glint of enthusiasm in this gentleman's eyes. And he started walking, and he said, oh, my God, that's the place I want to be. Lead me to that place. And he took him to Woodland Cemetery. And he says, this is a fact. No one in that or any other cemetery has a problem.
Wow.
They couldn't care less what they report in the newspapers, television, or the radio. They have no problems. They're all dead.
Right.
So it is logical to assume that problems constitute a sign of life. And life is problems. I had a day yesterday that actually I could write a book of all the stuff that actually happened to me. Nothing really bad, but nothing that I planned. Where I had a flat tire. There was a huge screw into my tire. I had to buy a new tire. I have a car with 2 different sets of tires, one in the front, one in the back.
Oh, jeez.
And they shipped me the wrong size, and I had to exchange that. And I had to do it because I needed the car. And then I went to the gas station, and I misplaced my credit card, and I couldn't find the credit card. And something else happened. I don't remember. But
so
it was just one of those days that I was just tired. And my God, but after a while, I said, well, it's still good. So I got the tire fixed, and I recovered my credit card. And what the heck? Those are problems you got to cope with. Everybody does.
So, friends, the message is if you have problems, that's a good thing because that means you're alive and you're trying to live your life, right?
Basically.
Exactly. Well, old Murphy visited you apparently yesterday. Murphy's Law.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about Murphy. He's always waiting for you, folks, no matter where you are, right around the corner. So, well, we hope you enjoyed today's show. You might think, gee, you're talking about different country and what happens on the subway and all that stuff. But really is symbolic of living your best life, being positive, being courteous. Pick up that little piece of paper on the ground because it's going to make a big difference, just like little courtesies.
Exactly. And, you actually feel really good when you do it because all of a sudden we became part of that neatness,
I love it.
It's really, really nice.
Well, that's great. Well, I hope to go to Japan one day. I've not been there, but I love it very much. My dad loved it as well. Maybe that's where I got it from. But thank you for sharing that, Norb. It was
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. And friends, we hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next month. And for Norb Svanascini, this is Al Edwards, and we'll see you next time.